The explosion ripped through the lower deck of Station Gamma 7, sending debris and screaming merchants flying through the corridor. David Reed had been examining a display of crystalline tools when the first blast hit. His training kicked in before his mind fully processed what was happening. Pirates. Had to be. He sprinted toward the sound of weapons fire, his boots pounding against the metal floor. Other beings ran past him in the opposite direction, a chaotic mix of species he was still learning to identify. 3 months into humanity's first official contact with the Galactic Commerce Alliance, and David was already in the middle of a firefight. The security station ahead was under siege. Through the smoke, David could see 4-armed Kalith warriors firing energy weapons at attackers pouring in from a breached airlock. Each Kalith held a single rifle, their other 3 arms hanging uselessly at their sides or gripping railings for stability. It seemed wasteful, but David had learned not to question alien customs too quickly. A heavily armored Dronic soldier lumbered past, its massive frame carrying a plasma cannon that required both its thick arms to operate. The weapon roared, cutting down 2 pirates, but the soldier was slow to turn. A pirate flanked it and fired 3 quick shots into its side. The Dronics went down hard. David slid behind a cargo container as energy bolts scorched the air above his head. He counted at least 15 attackers moving with coordinated precision. The station security was losing badly. Commander Valth, the Kalith security chief, barked orders in his native tongue. His purple skin had darkened to almost black, which David had learned meant extreme stress. Valth fired his rifle with his upper right arm while his other 3 arms gestured wildly, trying to direct his scattered troops. A weapons locker hung open on the wall nearby, damaged by the blast. Inside, David could see several plasma pistols rolling around loose. He made a decision that would change everything. He ran. Energy bolts chased him across the corridor. He dove, sliding on his stomach, and grabbed 2 pistols. His fingers found the activation switches instinctively. Both weapons hummed to life. David came up firing. His right hand tracked a pirate moving left. His left hand acquired a target moving right. Both triggers squeezed. Both pirates dropped. The corridor went silent for a heartbeat. David kept moving, his body operating on combat instinct drilled into him during his military service. Right pistol high, left pistol low. Cover the angles. Keep moving. 2 more pirates appeared from the smoke. David's hands worked independently, each weapon firing at its own target. The pirates fell before they could even raise their weapons. He heard a strange sound behind him and spun. Commander Valth stood frozen, all 4 of his eyes wide with shock. His rifle hung forgotten in his grip. "What are you doing?" Valth's translator rendered his words in a tone of pure disbelief. "Helping," David said, dropping behind cover as return fire finally came. He blind-fired both pistols around opposite sides of the container, keeping the pirates suppressed. "That is impossible," Valth said. "No being can operate 2 weapons simultaneously. The neural pathways cannot support divided targeting." David risked a glance at the Kalith commander. "You have 4 arms. We use 1 for combat. That is proper. That is safe. What you are doing violates every protocol of weapons handling." A pirate rushed their position. David shot him with the left pistol without looking, his attention still on Valth. The commander made a choking sound. More security forces arrived, drawn by the sounds of battle. They stared at David with the same shocked expression. Some raised their weapons halfway, unsure if he was a threat. The pirates were retreating now, dragging their wounded back toward their ship. David stood, both pistols tracking the last few enemies as they fled through the damaged airlock. He didn't fire. No point in wasting ammunition on a routed enemy. The airlock sealed. Emergency bulkhead slammed down. The attack was over. David looked down at the pistols in his hands, then at the circle of alien security forces surrounding him. Every single one of them held only a single weapon, regardless of how many limbs they possessed. "Drop the weapons," Valth said quietly, slowly. "Commander, I just helped save your station. You violated protocols I cannot even count. You displayed reckless disregard for safety procedures. You operated weapons in a manner that should be neurologically impossible." Valth's rifle never wavered. "You are under arrest." David carefully placed both pistols on the ground. 6 security personnel moved in, their movements cautious as if approaching a dangerous animal. As they led him away in restraints, David heard the whispers starting. Aliens pressed against the walls, staring at him. Their translators buzzed with words he was beginning to recognize. 2 weapons. Both hands. How? Impossible. The human did the impossible. Ambassador Yenna met them at the security office, her scaled face tight with concern. She was humanity's diplomatic liaison, and David had just created an intergalactic incident. "David, what happened?" she asked. "I fought back," he said simply. "With 2 weapons," Valth interjected, "simultaneously, independently. I witnessed him track and eliminate separate targets with each hand. It defies every known principle of combat neurology." Yenna closed her eyes. "Oh, David, what? I didn't know it was illegal." "It's not illegal," she said. "It's impossible. Every species in the galaxy has tried dual-wielding at some point in their martial history. Every species failed. The neural coordination required is beyond biological capability, or so they thought." Valth's skin shifted to a deep green. David was learning Kalith color changes, and green meant confusion mixed with fear. "I have fought for 40 cycles," Valth said. "I have 4 arms. I have trained since youth. I can use only 1 weapon effectively in combat. My brain cannot split targeting between multiple weapons. No brain can." David shrugged, the restraints clinking. "Human brains can." The room fell silent again. Yenna and Valth exchanged a long look. "This will spread," Yenna said finally. "By tomorrow, every species in the Alliance will know that humans can do something no one else can. They'll want to study you, test you. Some will fear you. Some already do," Valth added, his color shifting to orange. "Respect," David remembered. Orange meant respect. David looked at the 2 pistols on Valth's desk. "Now tagged as evidence, I just did what came naturally," he said. "That," Yenna replied, "is what terrifies them." Outside the security office, David could hear the station coming back to life. Repair crews worked on the damaged sections. Merchants reopened their stalls. Life continued, but something had changed. As security personnel passed by the window, each one glanced in at the human who could dual-wield. Their expressions mixed fear, curiosity, and something else. Wonder David Reed didn't know it yet, but his instinctive action during a pirate raid would reshape galactic military doctrine. He had shown the galaxy something they thought was impossible. And once you prove something is possible, everything changes. 3 judges sat behind the curved bench, each representing a different member species of the Galactic Commerce Alliance. David stood in the center of the judicial chamber, still trying to understand why defending a station from pirates had landed him in court. Magistrate Quillen, an insectoid being whose compound eyes reflected light in unsettling patterns, tapped his foreclaw on the desk. The sound echoed through the chamber like a countdown. "David Reed of Earth, you stand accused of 17 violations of established weapons safety protocols." Quillen began, his mandibles clicking with each word. "How do you answer?" "I was defending the station," David said, keeping his voice calm. Ambassador Yenna had coached him on remaining respectful but firm. The second judge, a floating gas-based entity named Whisper, pulsed with dim blue light. Its translated voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The defense of the station is not in question. Your methods are." "My methods worked." "Your methods were impossible," the third judge stated. She was Kalith, like Commander Valth. Her forearms folded in a gesture that meant absolute certainty. "I am Judge Nira. I have reviewed the security footage 12 times. I have consulted with neurological experts from 7 species. All confirm the same conclusion. What you did cannot be done." David almost smiled. "And yet I did it." Quillen's antennae twitched with irritation. "Explain your training. Explain the process by which a human brain can operate 2 weapons with independent targeting." "We just can," David said, then realized how unhelpful that sounded. "Humans have good hand-eye coordination. We can use both hands for different tasks. It's normal for us." The chamber filled with murmuring from the observers in the gallery. David turned to see dozens of alien species watching the proceedings. News of the dual-wielding human had spread fast. Whisper pulsed orange, which David's translator indicated meant skepticism. "Define normal. Provide baseline measurements of human neural pathway distribution." Ambassador Yenna stood from the defense table. "Your Honors, humanity has only been part of the Alliance for 3 months. We have not completed full biological documentation. However, I can confirm that ambidextrous coordination is common among humans. Many of our sports, our tools, our entire civilization is built around bilateral symmetry and independent limb control. Fascinating and horrifying, Judge Nira said flatly. Do you understand the implications? For 10,000 cycles, the Alliance has operated under the principle that divided weapons attention creates critical vulnerabilities. Our entire military doctrine is based on focused, single-weapon deployment. Maybe your doctrine needs updating, David said. The chamber went silent. Quillen's mandibles froze mid-click. You dare suggest, the insectoid judge said slowly, that a species who joined the Alliance mere months ago should dictate military policy to civilizations that have existed for millennia? I'm suggesting that evidence matters more than tradition. A commotion at the back of the chamber interrupted the tense moment. A large Caliph warrior pushed through the crowd, his purple skin marked with ritual scars. 3 of his forearms were bound in ceremonial wraps, marking him as dishonored. I claim right of challenge, the warrior announced, his voice booming through the space. Judge Nira's skin flushed pale green. Orth, you are not permitted in this chamber. I claim ancient right, Orth repeated, moving to stand before the bench. This human claims capability beyond our understanding. I challenge him to prove it in combat. If he is lying, if this is deception or luck, it will be revealed. If he speaks truth, then we must know. Quillen looked at his fellow judges. The right of challenge has not been invoked in 300 cycles. But it remains law, Orth said. I was once champion of the Caliph combat trials. I was exiled for questioning our traditional methods. I wish to see if this human represents the answer I have sought. David looked at Ambassador Yenna, who seemed torn between diplomatic protocol and curiosity. She gave him a small nod. Your choice, the gesture said. I accept, David said. The chamber erupted. Observers surged forward, shouting questions. The judges called for order, but excitement had taken hold. A challenge had been issued and accepted. Nothing could stop it now. 4 hours later, David stood in the station's training arena. Orth waited on the opposite side, massive and scarred, holding a plasma rifle in his upper right arm. His other 3 arms hung loose, as was traditional. You may use 2 weapons, Orth said, his tone almost eager. I will use one, as is proper. We fire at the combat drones. First to eliminate 10 targets wins. The drones will attack both of us without mercy. David picked up 2 plasma pistols from the equipment rack. They felt right in his hands, balanced and ready. Commander Valth stood as referee, his skin shifting through multiple colors. This is highly irregular, he muttered. Begin. The drones dropped from the ceiling, small flying discs that immediately opened fire with stun rounds. David moved on instinct. His right hand tracked a drone diving toward Orth. His left hand fired at one swooping toward himself. Both drones sparked and fell. Orth fired with precision, his single rifle dropping one drone, then another. He was fast, skilled, and accurate, but he could only shoot one target at a time. David's hands worked independently. Right pistol high, tracking fast movers. Left pistol low, covering his flanks. His brain didn't think about it, didn't plan it. The coordination was automatic, instinctive, as natural as walking. 3 drones swarmed Orth from different angles. He eliminated one, dodged the second, but took a stun round from the third. He grunted but kept fighting. David eliminated 4 drones in quick succession, his body spinning to acquire targets, each hand operating in its own sphere of awareness. His right hand didn't know what his left was doing, and it didn't need to. Impossible. Someone breathed from the observation deck. The match lasted 4 minutes. David eliminated his 10th drone while Orth was still working on his 7th. The Caliph warrior lowered his rifle, staring at David with all 4 eyes wide. You do not think about it, Orth said slowly. Your hands operate independently of conscious thought. Pretty much, David said, setting down the pistols. Orth walked across the arena, his heavy footsteps deliberate. He stopped in front of David and did something shocking. He unwrapped one of his bound arms, the left lower one, and extended it in the human gesture of respect he had clearly researched. David shook his hand. I was exiled because I believed our methods were incomplete, Orth said. I argued that we limited ourselves with tradition. They called me heretic, said I dishonored our ancestors. But I was right. You prove I was right. You have 4 arms, David said carefully. Have you ever tried using more than one weapon? It is forbidden. It is dangerous. It cannot be done. Maybe it can. You just need to learn how. Orth's skin flickered through a dozen colors David couldn't identify. The warrior looked at his forearms, then at David's two hands, then back at his arms. "Teach me," Orth said. The observers in the deck above erupted in shock. A Kalith warrior asking a human for combat training was unprecedented. Judge Nira stood at the railing, her skin pale with disbelief. "This trial is postponed," she announced. "We must consult with the High Council. Nothing in our law covers this situation." David looked at the two pistols on the arena floor, then at Orth's hopeful expression, then at the crowd of aliens pressing against the observation glass. Every single one of them was watching him with a mixture of fear and fascination. "The charges are dismissed," Magistrate Quillen announced, appearing at the arena entrance. "We cannot prosecute an individual for capabilities we do not understand. However, all humans serving in Alliance territory must now undergo combat certification evaluations. We must understand these abilities." Ambassador Yenna joined David on the arena floor, relief clear on her scaled face. "You just became the most famous human in the galaxy." "I just shot some drones," David protested. "You challenged 10,000 years of military doctrine and won," she corrected. "News of this will spread to every Alliance world within days. Every military academy will want to study you. Every combat instructor will question their training. You have started something that cannot be stopped." David looked at his hands, ordinary human hands that could do something the galaxy thought impossible. Orth approached again, this time accompanied by 3 other Kalith warriors who must have been watching. They all bore the marks of dishonor, all questioned the old ways. "Will you teach us?" Orth asked again. David thought about military doctrine, about tradition, about the way humans had always challenged the impossible. "Yeah," he said, "I'll teach you." The training arena became ground zero for a revolution that would change galactic warfare forever. But David didn't know that yet. He just knew that when someone wants to learn, you teach them. That's what humans do. Amy Torres had never felt more frustrated in her entire military career. She stood in the training hall of the Galactic War College on Threshold Prime, holding a single plasma rifle while her other hand hung uselessly at her side. "Again," Captain Lyra commanded, her crystalline body refracting light across the practice range. "Single weapon focus drill. Acquire target, fire, acquire next target, fire." Proper technique, Amy fired. Hit the target. Acquired the next. Fired. Hit. The process felt painfully slow, like hopping on one leg when she could run. Beside her, Ben Walker was having the same struggle. The Navy weapons expert kept twitching his left hand toward the spare pistol on his belt, muscle memory screaming at him to use both weapons. "You humans must learn proper form," Lyra said, her voice carrying the sharp edge of crystals grinding together. "Your species' unusual capabilities are interesting, but they are not compatible with Alliance standard doctrine. You will learn our methods. 3 months of this. 3 months of deliberately handicapping themselves to fit alien expectations." Amy wanted to scream. The training session ended. Amy and Ben walked to the barracks in silence, passing groups of alien cadets who still stared at them like exotic animals. The other humans in their unit had scattered to different training programs. But Amy and Ben had been assigned together, possibly because the instructors thought they could contain the dual-wielding problem more easily with the humans grouped. "I'm going to fail out if I can't use both hands," Ben said quietly. "I'm a weapons specialist. My whole brain is wired for dual operations. Forcing me to use one weapon is like forcing me to think with half my brain." "We need to practice," Amy said. "Real practice tonight." Ben looked around nervously. "If we get caught training outside approved parameters, we won't get caught. I found an unused cargo bay on level 7. Bring your gear." That night, Amy and Ben stood in the dim cargo bay, both holding 2 pistols. The familiar weight felt like coming home after a long deployment. "Start simple," Amy said. "Static targets, both weapons, independent tracking." They practiced in silence. The only sound, the hum of plasma weapons and the impact of shots on makeshift targets they had constructed from cargo containers. Amy's body sang with relief. This was right. This was natural. "Mind if I watch?" Both humans spun, weapons raised. A young Dronix stood in the doorway, his massive armored frame barely fitting through. He raised his thick arms in a peaceful gesture. "Easy. I'm Krell. I'm in your tactical theory class. I've been watching you two struggle all month." "Watching us fail, you mean?" Amy said bitterly, lowering her weapons. "Watching you hold back," Krell corrected, moving into the bay. "I see you in training. You both fire with one weapon, but your other hand keeps moving. Like it wants to help but can't. It made me curious. Curious about what? Ben asked. Krell looked at his 4 arms, each thicker than Amy's torso. I have 4 arms. I have always had 4 arms. But I use one weapon. Because that is proper. That is safe. That is what I was taught from hatching. He paused. But I have 4 arms. Why do I only use one? Amy and Ben exchanged glances. The same question David Reed had asked Commander Valth. The same question that had started everything. Cultural conditioning, Amy said. Your instructors taught you that multi-weapon use was impossible or dangerous. But you do it, Krell said. Humans do it. I saw the recordings of David Reed. I watched him fire 2 weapons at completely different targets simultaneously. If humans with 2 arms can do it, why can't I with 4? Want to try? Ben offered, gesturing to the spare weapons. Krell's eyes widened. That would be against regulations. So is what we're doing, Amy pointed out. But we're not learning anything by following their rules. We're just learning to be worse versions of ourselves. The Dronix stood silent for a long moment, his armored plates shifting slightly. Then he reached out and picked up 2 plasma pistols, one in each of his primary arms. Show me, he said. They practiced for 3 hours. Krell struggled at first, his centuries of cultural conditioning fighting against the attempt to split his attention. But slowly, with coaching from Amy and Ben, he began to make progress. His shots weren't coordinated yet, but he could fire both weapons at the same target. This is harder than it looks, Krell admitted, setting down the weapons. His arms trembled with fatigue. You're fighting your training, Amy explained. Your instructors told you it was impossible, so your brain believes it. You have to unlearn that before you can learn the new skill. How long did it take humans to learn this? Ben laughed. We don't learn it. We're born with the capability. Human brains are naturally wired for bilateral coordination. It's why we're good at sports, at playing musical instruments, at doing different tasks with each hand. It's just built into us. Krell's shoulders slumped. Then I cannot learn it. My biology is different, maybe, Amy said. Or maybe you just need a different approach. Humans learn to dual-wield because our brains support it naturally. But that doesn't mean other species can't learn it through practice and training. It'll be harder for you, but hard doesn't mean impossible. They met secretly every night after that. Word spread quietly among the cadets, and soon others joined them. A Silith blade specialist who wanted to try dual-wielding knives. A Kalith scout who had heard about Orth's training with David Reed. Even a few brave instructors who came to observe, though they never officially acknowledged what they were seeing. 4 weeks into their secret training sessions, the War College announced a surprise combat exercise. All cadets would participate in war games against the college's advanced combat drones, an exercise designed to simulate real battlefield conditions. These drones have defeated every cadet class for the past 20 years, Captain Lyra announced. They are programmed with the combat tactics of 17 hostile species. They will not hold back. You will operate in teams of 4. This exercise will determine your final rankings. Amy, Ben, Krell, and a Silith named Quickblade formed a team. They had practiced together every night for a month. They knew each other's capabilities. We use standard doctrine, Krell said nervously as they prepared. 1 weapon each. Follow regulations. Amy looked at Ben, then at Quickblade, then back at Krell. Or we could win. Using dual wielding in an official exercise will cause an incident. Quickblade hissed, his blade-like fingers twitching. We will be expelled, or we'll show them what we can really do, Ben said quietly. The wargame arena was a massive indoor environment designed to simulate urban combat. Buildings, obstacles, cover points, and kill zones filled the space. Their team entered from the south side, facing an unknown number of drones programmed to hunt and eliminate them. Stay in formation, Krell said. Single weapon discipline. We can pass this exercise with standard tactics. The first drone appeared and Krell fired with his primary arm, just like regulations demanded. He hit the target, but 2 more drones flanked them during his reload time. Ben eliminated one with his rifle, but the second drone got off 3 shots before Quickblade could engage with his blade. They were losing. Amy made a decision. She drew her second pistol. Torres, no! Krell shouted. Amy didn't respond. She fired both weapons, tracking 2 drones simultaneously. Both went down. Ben hesitated only a second before drawing his second weapon. The 2 humans moved in perfect coordination, each covering different angles, each hand operating independently. The drones swarmed them, adapting to the new threat. But they were programmed to fight enemies using single-weapon doctrine. They couldn't compensate for the humans' dual-wielding assault. Krell watched in amazement. Then slowly he drew a second pistol in his lower arm. His shots were uncoordinated, wild, but the simple act of firing two weapons created additional covering fire that the drones hadn't anticipated. Quickblade hissed in frustration, then drew a second blade. His species naturally used weapons in each hand for close combat, but Alliance doctrine had trained him to sheath one blade and use only a single weapon. With both blades active, he became a whirlwind of strikes. Their team moved through the arena like nothing the War College had ever seen. Two humans dual-wielding with perfect coordination, Adronix firing two weapons with improving accuracy, a Silith blade dancer using both hands like his ancestors had before Alliance standardization. They cleared the course in 11 minutes, eliminating 47 combat drones. The previous record was 31 minutes with 18 drone eliminations. They didn't just win. They shattered every existing record. Captain Lyra stood at the observation deck, her crystalline form absolutely still. Around her, other instructors watched in silence. Some looked angry. Some looked thoughtful. Some looked afraid. The team emerged from the arena to find every cadet in the college waiting. No one spoke. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, an older instructor stepped forward. His species was unknown to Amy, a floating sphere of dense gas with a voice like thunder. "You violated doctrine," he said simply. "Yes, sir," Amy replied. "You demonstrated combat effectiveness beyond projected parameters." "Yes, sir." "You have created a problem." Amy stood straight. "Yes, sir." The instructor floated closer, his form pulsing with colors Amy couldn't interpret. "You have also demonstrated that our doctrine may be incomplete. The High Command will want explanations. They will want demonstrations. They will want to know if this can be taught to other species." Krell stepped forward. "It can be. I am learning. I as well," Quickblade added, "though my progress is slower than the humans." The instructor was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Then perhaps it is time for the doctrine to evolve." Captain Lyra's crystalline body cracked slightly, a sign of extreme stress. "You cannot mean to officially sanction this chaos." "I mean to sanction effectiveness," the older instructor replied. "The humans have shown us a capability we dismissed as impossible. Some species may never master it, but some might, and we owe it to our forces to explore every tactical advantage." Amy felt Ben's hand on her shoulder, a quiet gesture of victory. They hadn't just won an exercise. They had won something much bigger. The War College split that day into traditionalists and innovators. Arguments raged in classrooms. Demonstrations were demanded. But slowly, gradually, the doctrine began to change. And Amy Torres, who just wanted to fight the way her brain was wired to fight, had helped make it happen. Ratch replayed the security footage for the 47th time, his 6 eyes tracking every movement the human made. The pirate leader sat in his command chair aboard the Dark Prize, his crew waiting nervously behind him. "Watch," he hissed, freezing the playback. "Right-hand targets left. Left-hand targets right. The brain splits targeting across bilateral systems, impossible, but real." His second-in-command, a scarred Caliph named Dern, shifted uncomfortably. The Broken Claw Syndicate was humiliated at Station Gamma 7. 3 ships lost, 40 warriors dead, all because of one human. "Not because of one human," Ratch corrected. "Because we did not understand what humans could do. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is death." He stood, his lean frame towering over most of his crew. "We learn, we adapt. We test this capability against prepared opposition." "You want to attack another human target?" Dern asked carefully. "I want to attack a soft human target. The colony ship Horizon's Dream departed Earth system 3 weeks ago. 500 human colonists, light security, heading for the outer rim. They will be in deep space for another month. No Alliance protection. No military escort. Perfect test subjects." The crew murmured their approval. Ratch smiled, showing too many teeth. The Broken Claw Syndicate had been raiding the outer rim for decades. They knew how to hit ships in deep space, and now they would learn how to fight humans. 2 weeks later, the Horizon's Dream detected 3 vessels on intercept course. Security Chief Frank Stone reviewed the sensor data and felt his stomach tighten. "Pirates," he announced to his team. Broken claw configuration. 3 assault ships, probably 30 fighters total. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. His security team numbered 12, all former military, all armed with standard plasma weapons. Frank had watched the recordings from Station Gamma 7. He knew what David Reed had done, and he knew that every human on this ship could do the same thing if they needed to. Listen up, Frank said, gathering his team. Alliance ships fight with 1 weapon per person because their biology limits them. We don't have that limitation. So here's what we're going to do. Everyone takes 2 weapons. You pick your loadout. You fight the way humans fight. Sarah Park, a former Marine, grinned and grabbed 2 pistols. About time someone said that. The others followed suit. 2 weapons each. Different combinations. Pistol and rifle. 2 pistols. Rifle and shotgun. Whatever felt natural to each individual. The pirates hit hard, breaching the colony ship's hull in 3 places simultaneously. They expected frightened civilians and minimal resistance. They had studied the Gamma 7 footage and thought they understood the threat. They were wrong. Frank's team met the first breach with overwhelming firepower. Each security officer engaged multiple targets, their dual weapons creating crossfire patterns the pirates couldn't counter. The attackers had trained for opponents who fired 1 weapon. They had no tactics for facing enemies who could shoot in 2 directions at once. Fall back, a pirate commander screamed. They all fight like the one from the station. They all dual-wield. The second breach went worse for the pirates. Sarah led the defense there, her 2 pistols working in perfect harmony. She moved through the corridor like a dancer, each hand tracking independent targets, her body turning to acquire new threats while her previous targets were still falling. But the third breach nearly succeeded. The pirates adapted, using heavy shields and massed fire to push through. They were learning. Frank rushed to support the failing defense line, his rifle and pistol barking in rhythm. The pirates had numbers and armor. His team had coordination and capability. It was a near thing. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, the pirates retreated to their ships, leaving behind 15 dead and taking nothing. The colony ship had casualties, but it had survived. Frank found Sarah in the medical bay, getting her shoulder wound treated. They adapted fast, she said. By the end, they were using tactics specifically designed to counter dual-wielding. Overwhelming fire, heavy shields, numbers advantage. They're learning how to fight us, Frank agreed. That's bad. Worse, word of the attack spread through both Alliance space and the criminal networks. The Broken Claw Syndicate began studying human combat footage obsessively. Ratch personally reviewed every second of the Horizon's dream battle, taking notes, developing counter-tactics. Humans have a weakness, he announced to his assembled lieutenants. They split their attention between 2 weapons. This means neither weapon receives full focus. Concentrated fire should overwhelm them. Mass tactics should break their coordination. We should also try to replicate their ability, suggested a lieutenant. Cybernetic enhancement. Neural implants. If we can dual-wield as they do, we become superior. Ratch considered this. Begin experimentation. Use volunteers first. If successful, we equip our best warriors. Meanwhile, David Reed sat in a briefing room on Alliance Central Station, facing Director Sen of Galactic Intelligence. The director was a Silith, his blade fingers clicking thoughtfully against the desk. The Broken Claw Syndicate is obsessed with you, Sen said without preamble. They study human combat capabilities. They seek to counter them or replicate them. This makes humanity a specific target. Because we can dual-wield, David said. It wasn't a question. Because you demonstrated a capability that threatens their operational advantage. For decades, the Syndicate has raided with impunity, because they understood Alliance combat doctrine perfectly. They knew our limitations. Now humans introduce an unknown variable. They don't like unknown variables. So what do you want from me? I want you to help develop new anti-piracy tactics. Mixed species teams that use each species' strengths. Humans provide covering fire and multi-target engagement. Kaleth use their forearms for equipment management and communication. Dronics provide heavy assault capability. Silith offer close combat expertise. We combine our abilities instead of forcing everyone into identical roles. David thought about this. It made sense. Alliance doctrine had tried to make every species fight the same way, which meant everyone fought at the lowest common capability. But if each species fought to their strengths while working together, the whole would exceed the sum of its parts. I'm in, David said. When do we start? The pilot program began 3 weeks later. David led a 12-person team, 4 humans, 3 Kalith, 3 Dronix, and 2 Silith. They trained together for 2 months, learning each other's capabilities and limitations. The humans dual-wielded, providing rapid multi-target engagement and covering fire. The Kalith used all 4 arms, carrying weapons, equipment, scanners, and communicators simultaneously. The Dronix wielded their heavy weapons while also carrying shields and defensive gear. The Silith brought their natural dual-blade fighting style, enhanced with modern weapons. Their first real operation was a raid on a Syndicate supply base. Intelligence suggested 15 to 20 pirates, standard defenses, minimal resistance expected. The team hit fast. David and the other humans laid down suppressing fire from multiple angles, their dual weapons keeping the pirates pinned. The Kalith moved through the chaos, their 4 arms operating equipment while still maintaining weapon readiness. The Dronix smashed through defensive positions with their heavy weapons and armor. The Silith cleared close-quarter spaces with brutal efficiency. The raid lasted 9 minutes. 0 friendly casualties. 17 pirates captured, their supplies seized, their base destroyed. Director Sen reviewed the operation footage with barely contained excitement. This is the future of Alliance tactical operations. Diversity is strength, adaptation is doctrine. But Ratch watched the same footage and saw something different. He saw the humans working in coordination with aliens. He saw mixed tactics, and he saw an opportunity. They're predictable now, he told his lieutenants. The humans always provide covering fire, always dual-wield. We designed tactics specifically to counter that role. Heavy armor against their lighter weapons, mass charges to overwhelm their firing solutions. We make them the primary target and eliminate them first. He gestured to a volunteer pirate who stepped forward, arms replaced with cybernetic implants designed to replicate human bilateral coordination. The pirate raised 2 weapons and attempted to fire at separate targets. The attempt failed spectacularly. Both weapons fired wildly, coordination completely absent. The neural implants couldn't replicate something that required biological brain structure, developed over millions of years of evolution. Disappointing, Ratch said, but informative. We cannot become them, so we must destroy them. Prepare the fleet. We're going to send a message to these humans. We're going to show the galaxy that the Broken Claw Syndicate fears no one. David received intelligence about the Syndicate fleet movements 6 hours before they struck. A major assault, target unknown but clearly designed to prove a point. He gathered his team. They're coming for us. This isn't a supply raid or a training exercise. This is the Syndicate trying to break our reputation before it spreads too far. How many ships? Asked Sarah, now a permanent member of his unit. 20, maybe more. They're throwing everything they have at whatever target they've chosen. The target turned out to be a civilian research station on the rim. 300 scientists, minimal defenses. Perfect for a massacre designed to humiliate the humans and their new tactics. David's team arrived first, reinforced by 2 Alliance warships and additional security forces. They had 4 hours to prepare before the Syndicate fleet appeared. They'll expect us to fight like we did at the supply base, David said. So we adapt. We change tactics. We show them that humans don't just dual-wield. We innovate. The battle that followed would be studied in Alliance military academies for decades. The Syndicate came in hard, their tactics specifically designed to counter human dual-wielding. But David's forces didn't fight the same way twice. Humans paired with Kalith spotters. Dronix used shields to protect human shooters. Silith drew fire while humans flanked. Every engagement different, every tactic adapted. The Syndicate broke after 40 minutes, their losses too heavy, their tactics obsolete before they were even deployed. Ratch escaped but lost 15 ships and 200 warriors. The Broken Claw Syndicate's reputation shattered. David stood in the research station's damaged corridor, surrounded by his mixed species team. They had fought together, adapted together, won together. This is what the Alliance can be, Director Sen said, arriving after the battle ended. Not humans imposing their way. Not forcing everyone to be the same, but each species contributing their unique strengths to a greater whole. David looked at his hands, the hands that had started this revolution with a simple instinctive action during a pirate raid. We're just getting started, he said. The Arena of Champions had stood for 3,000 years, a neutral ground where species settled disputes through combat instead of war. The massive structure floated in deep space, belonging to no government, respected by all. David had never expected to fight here. The tournament announces a special exhibition category, Director Sen explained, displaying the official invitation. Unrestricted combat. No limitations on weapons, tactics, or team composition. First time in 500 years they've allowed it. Why now? David asked. Because of you. Because of what humans have started. The arena masters want to see if dual-wielding holds up against the galaxy's finest warriors in open competition. Beside David stood Orth, the Kaleth warrior who had challenged him months ago at the trial. The exile had become David's closest combat partner, his forearms now wielding weapons with improving coordination. I will fight with you, Orth said. If you will have me. We need a third, David said. 3-person teams, Amy Torres stepped forward. I'm in. Someone needs to make sure you two don't get killed showing off. The team registered under a simple name, Mixed Unit. No fancy title. No dramatic posturing. Just 3 warriors who had trained together and trusted each other. The tournament drew competitors from across the galaxy. The Dronics sent their heavy assault specialists, warriors whose shields could stop missiles and whose cannons could level buildings. The Silith sent Swiftblade, their greatest champion, a being so fast his movements blurred, and the Broken Claw Syndicate sent Ratch himself. The pirate leader stood in the competitors' gallery, his cybernetically enhanced frame gleaming under the lights. He had augmented himself extensively, trying to replicate human capabilities through technology. His arms now held neural interfaces, his targeting systems linked directly to his brain. I will face the humans, Ratch announced publicly. I will prove that their tricks can be matched and beaten. The tournament began with preliminary rounds. 40 teams entered, each fighting in the arena's shifting environments. Mountains, cities, open plains. The arena could generate any terrain, any condition. David's team faced a traditional Kaleth honor guard in the first round. 4 warriors, each using a single weapon with perfect discipline. They were skilled, honorable, and completely unprepared for facing opponents who didn't follow traditional combat doctrine. Orth used all 4 arms, wielding 2 rifles and 2 pistols simultaneously. His shots weren't perfectly coordinated yet, but the sheer volume of fire kept the honor guard defensive. David and Amy worked in tandem, their dual weapons creating crossfire patterns that forced their opponents into fatal positions. The match ended in 4 minutes. The honor guard saluted respectfully in defeat. Your exile is unjust, their captain said to Orth. You have found a better path. We were wrong to condemn you. Orth's skin flushed deep purple with emotion. Validation from his own people meant more than any victory. The second round pitted them against a Dronics heavy team. Massive warriors with shields and cannons moving like armored mountains. Power versus precision. Amy took a cannon blast to her cover and barely rolled away in time. We can't match their firepower. We don't have to, David shouted. Orth, high fire! Keep them looking up. Amy with me, we flank low. The Dronics raised their shields to block Orth's aerial assault, which left their lower positions exposed. David and Amy slid beneath their firing lines, their dual pistols finding the weak points in Dronics armor with rapid precision. The heavy warriors fell, their strength useless against speed and coordination. The quarterfinals brought them against Swiftblade's team. The Silith moved like liquid death, their blade work legendary throughout the galaxy. David had studied footage of Swiftblade fights. The Silith warrior had never lost a tournament match in 12 years. He's faster than anything I've ever seen, Amy said, watching Swiftblade warm up in the competitor area. How do we fight that? We don't fight his speed, David said. We fight smarter. Orth, you're our anchor. Amy and I will draw them in. When they commit to close range, you hammer them from distance. The match began in an urban environment. Swiftblade's team vanished into the buildings immediately, using their speed to control position. David and Amy moved carefully, back to back, their 4 weapons covering every angle. Orth stayed behind, his forearms managing sensors, weapons, and communication gear simultaneously. Swiftblade struck like lightning, his blades blurring toward David's throat. But David had anticipated the attack angle. Both pistols fired, not at Swiftblade but at the walls beside him, creating debris that disrupted the Silith's perfect movement. Swiftblade twisted away, his speed allowing him to dodge, but the momentary disruption gave Amy her opening. Her shots forced him to fully commit to defense. Orth's rifles spoke from the rear position, providing covering fire that kept Swiftblade's teammates pinned. The battle became a dance of speed versus coordination. Swiftblade was faster than any human, but David and Amy worked together with seamless bilateral coordination that the Silith couldn't counter alone. Every attack he made, they had covering fire. Every position he took, they had crossfire waiting. The match lasted 11 minutes, the longest of the tournament so far. When it ended, Swiftblade bowed deeply. "You honor combat with innovation," he said. "I have studied your techniques. Perhaps speed is not the only path to victory." David noticed that Swiftblade now carried 2 blades in each hand, instead of his traditional single weapon. The Silith was learning. The semifinals arrived. 4 teams remained. Mixed unit, a Dronix super heavy team, an all-Kalith squad, and Ratch's syndicate team. The matchups were drawn randomly. Mixed unit versus the syndicate. Ratch smiled when the announcement came. "Finally, I get to kill humans in front of the entire galaxy." The arena generated a space station environment. Close quarters, lots of corners. Perfect for the chaotic fighting the syndicate preferred. Ratch's team included 2 other cybernetically enhanced pirates, all equipped with experimental dual-wielding augmentation. They had spent months and millions of credits trying to replicate what humans did naturally. The match began. Ratch came out firing with both arms, his cybernetic targeting systems attempting to acquire multiple targets. But the technology couldn't replicate instinct. His shots were mechanical, predictable, lacking the fluid coordination of natural bilateral control. David moved on pure combat instinct, his dual pistols firing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Right hand high, left hand low. Cover the angles. Trust your training. The cybernetic pirates struggled. Their augmentation gave them the ability to hold 2 weapons, but not the neural architecture to use them effectively. They fired both weapons at the same target, wasting their advantage. They hesitated between shots, their artificial systems requiring conscious thought for actions that should be automatic. "You cannot replicate evolution with technology," David shouted, his weapons tracking Ratch through the chaos. "I can replicate victory!" Ratch fired back, his cybernetic arms moving with mechanical precision. But precision wasn't coordination. Ratch could aim both weapons, but he couldn't make them work independently. His brain, shaped by millions of years of single-focus evolution, couldn't split targeting the way human brains could. Orth flanked from the left, his forearms creating a wall of fire that forced Ratch's team into a kill zone. Amy swept from the right, her dual pistols eliminating the cybernetic pirates before they could adapt. Ratch stood alone, his expensive augmentation useless, his tactics obsolete. "You lose because you tried to become us," David said, weapons trained on the pirate leader. "You should have fought as yourself." Ratch threw down his weapons in surrender. The arena erupted in cheers. The finals came next. Mixed unit versus the Dronix super heavy team. Brute force against coordination. Power against precision. The Dronix team had watched every previous match. They knew mixed unit's tactics. They had prepared specifically to counter dual-wielding and multi-arm coordination. The arena generated an open plain, nowhere to hide, perfect for the Dronix's heavy weapons advantage. "This is going to hurt," Amy muttered. The Dronix advanced in formation, their shields overlapping, their cannons charging. They had learned from previous defeats. They wouldn't expose themselves to flanking. They would use overwhelming firepower to simply smash through any defense. David looked at Orth, then at Amy. They had trained together for months. They knew each other's thoughts, each other's movements. "Remember what Director Sen said?" David asked. "Each species contributes their strengths. We're not trying to be better than them. We're trying to be better together." Orth nodded, understanding. His forearms began reconfiguring gear, switching weapons, adapting. The Dronix fired. The ground erupted. Mixed unit scattered, using speed instead of standing firm. They didn't try to match the Dronix's power. They used mobility, coordination, and adaptation. David and Amy laid suppressing fire while Orth moved to high ground. The Kalith warrior used his forearms to carry heavy equipment while maintaining weapons readiness, something no other species could do. He set up a long-range rifle position while his other arms managed spotting gear and communication. The Dronix tried to maintain formation, but fighting an enemy who could shoot from 4 different positions simultaneously while moving constantly broke their tactical discipline. The match became a masterclass in combined arms tactics. Humans providing rapid multi-target engagement, Kalith utilizing their multiple limbs for complex equipment management. Different species, different capabilities working together. The Dronix fell one by one, their power meaningless against coordination they couldn't counter. When the final Dronix warrior surrendered, the arena fell silent for a moment. Then the cheering began, a roar of approval from species across the galaxy. The Arbiter, ancient master of the tournament, descended to the arena floor. His species was unknown, his age impossible to determine. "In 3,000 years I have seen many champions," the Arbiter said, his voice carrying across the arena. "But I have never seen a team that proved diversity itself was a strength. You did not win because humans can dual-wield. You won because you learned to combine different capabilities into something greater." David accepted the champion's trophy, a crystal statue that would be displayed in the arena's Hall of Honor. But the real victory was the message sent across the galaxy. Humans weren't superior. They were different. And different could be strength, when combined with other differences. Ratch approached after the ceremony, his cybernetic augmentation being removed by medical technicians. The pirate leader looked diminished without his technological enhancements. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I tried to become you instead of being myself. I thought power came from replication, but you showed me it comes from cooperation." "What will you do now?" David asked. "I will turn myself in to Alliance authorities. I have intelligence about syndicate operations. Perhaps I can contribute something worthwhile instead of just taking." David watched the pirate leader leave, escorted by security. One enemy converted, one mind changed. The tournament ended, but its effects rippled across the galaxy. Combat doctrines updated. Training programs revised. Species began exploring their unique capabilities instead of conforming to standard doctrine. And David Reed, who had just wanted to defend a station during a pirate raid, stood in the arena of champions as the warrior who changed everything. "What's next?" Amy asked. David looked at his hands, ordinary human hands that had started a revolution. "We teach," he said. "We show the galaxy that impossible is just a word." 6 months after the Tournament of Shadows, David stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on Alliance Prime, facing military commanders from 40 different species. The hall had hosted peace treaties, declarations of war, and countless diplomatic negotiations. Today it would host something different. Revolution in military thinking, the Galactic Military. Command formally requests human expertise in updating combat training protocols, announced Supreme Commander Telth, a venerable Kalith whose purple skin had faded to pale lavender with age. "David Reed, you are appointed as Galactic Combat Liaison. Your task: help us reimagine how we fight." David stepped to the podium, acutely aware that his words would reach every military academy, every training facility, every combat unit in Alliance space. "I'm not here to teach you to be human," he began. "I'm here to help you be yourselves. Better versions of yourselves." For 10,000 years, the Alliance forced every species to fight the same way. One weapon, one doctrine, one set of tactics. That was safe, that was predictable, but it was also limiting. He gestured to a holographic display showing combat footage. "Humans can dual-wield because our brains naturally support bilateral coordination. That's our biological advantage. But every species has advantages. The Kalith have 4 arms. The Dronix have incredible strength. The Silith have speed we can't match. We've been ignoring these advantages for millennia because they didn't fit standard doctrine." A Dronix commander raised a heavy arm. "You suggest we abandon proven methods for experimental tactics?" "I suggest we stop fighting with one hand behind our backs," David replied. "Literally, in the case of the Kalith. Commander Orth, please join me." Orth stepped forward, his forearms moving with confident coordination. 6 months of intensive training had transformed him from an exile to a master of multi-weapon combat. "Demonstrate," David said. Orth drew 4 weapons, 2 rifles, 2 pistols. He engaged holographic targets appearing around the hall, each arm working independently, each weapon tracking different targets. His shooting wasn't as perfectly coordinated as human dual-wielding, but it was devastatingly effective. 4 targets eliminated in the time it would normally take to engage one. The hall erupted in murmurs. Kalith commanders leaned forward, their skin colors shifting through the entire spectrum of emotion. "This is possible," Commander Talth asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's possible," Orth confirmed. It requires different training than humans need. My brain isn't wired for this naturally. I had to learn to split my attention, to let each arm operate semi-independently. It took months of practice, but it works. Show them the equipment management demonstration, David suggested. Orth holstered 2 weapons and pulled out a scanner, a medical kit and a communications device, one in each remaining hand. He operated all of them simultaneously while keeping 2 weapons ready, movement scanning with one arm, first aid application with another, communication coordination with the third, weapon readiness with the fourth. No other species can do this, David said. Humans certainly can't. This is uniquely Kalith. This is what you can contribute that no one else can match. But you've been trained to use only one arm in combat, so this capability was wasted. The implications rippled through the hall. Commanders began talking urgently with their aides. Tactical officers pulled up data on their species' physical capabilities. Amy Torres took the podium next. I've been working with the Dronix heavy assault units. Traditional doctrine says they carry one heavy weapon and nothing else. But Dronix have incredible strength. They can carry a heavy weapon and a shield, or a weapon and a repair kit, or a weapon and a wounded soldier. We've been limiting them to pure firepower when they could be providing mobile cover for entire squads. A Dronix heavy assault specialist named Grant stood, his massive armored frame creaking. I have trained my entire life to carry the biggest gun possible. You say this is wrong? I say it's incomplete, Amy replied. You're a mobile fortress. Act like one. Carry the big gun, but also carry a shield. Protect your squad mates while you destroy the enemy. Use your strength for more than just offense. Grant considered this. Then slowly he picked up both a heavy plasma cannon and a full-size shield. His arms trembled slightly under the weight, but he held both. The other Dronix in the hall stared in amazement. I can do this, Grant said, surprise in his voice. I never tried because doctrine said one weapon only. But I can do this. Exactly, Amy said. We've been so focused on standardization that we forgot to ask what each species does best. Swift Blade, the Silith champion from the tournament, approached the podium. He had become an advocate for the new doctrine, traveling across Alliance space demonstrating updated techniques. The Silith naturally use blades in both hands, he said. Our entire martial tradition is based on dual weapon fighting, but Alliance military training told us to put one blade away, to use only a single weapon. We accepted this because we trusted the doctrine, but the doctrine was based on species who couldn't dual-wield. It never applied to us. We handicapped ourselves for no reason. He drew 2 vibro blades, moving through a demonstration that showcased the speed and precision his species was famous for. With both blades active, he became twice as deadly. How many other species have we handicapped? Swift Blade asked the assembly. How many natural abilities have we suppressed because they didn't match the standard? The question hung in the air. Commanders began reviewing data about their own species, looking for capabilities that had been ignored or actively discouraged by traditional training. Director Sen stood from his seat in the observer's gallery. The Intelligence Directorate has already begun implementing mixed species tactical teams based on Commander Reed's pilot program. Success rates have increased by 47%. Casualty rates have dropped by 32%. The evidence supports doctrinal revision. But what about cohesion? An older Kalith general challenged. If every species fights differently, how do we maintain unified command structure? David had been waiting for this question. We maintain unity through understanding, not conformity. Mixed units need to train together longer, learn each other's capabilities better. But the result is forces that complement each other instead of all doing the same thing. Humans provide rapid multi-target engagement. Kalith manage complex equipment while fighting. Dronix provide heavy support and mobile cover. Silith offers speed and close combat expertise. Together, we're stronger than any of us alone. He pulled up footage from recent anti-piracy operations. Mixed species teams working in perfect coordination, each member contributing unique capabilities. The results were undeniable. This is the future of Alliance military operations, Supreme Commander Talth said, his skin settling into a determined orange. Not human doctrine, not Kalith doctrine, not any single species doctrine. A new doctrine built on diversity as tactical advantage. The vote was called. The measure passed with overwhelming support. The Grand Assembly authorized complete revision of Alliance military training protocols. Each species would develop specialized roles based on their biological capabilities. Cross-species coordination would become mandatory training. The old standard doctrine would be phased out within 2 years. As the assembly adjourned, David was surrounded by commanders wanting to discuss specifics. But one visitor caught his attention. Ratch approached, no longer a pirate leader but a free man. He had provided intelligence about syndicate operations and accepted rehabilitation. The former enemy now worked as a consultant helping Alliance forces understand criminal tactics. "You changed my life," Ratch said simply. "I spent years trying to be stronger through technology and violence. You showed me that strength comes from accepting what you are and working with others who are different." "What will you do now?" David asked. "I've been offered a position teaching unconventional tactics at the War College. Apparently my years as a pirate gave me insights into non-standard combat approaches." Ratch smiled, showing fewer teeth than before. "I will help train the next generation to think creatively instead of following rigid doctrine." Over the following months, the transformation began. New training facilities opened. Cross-species academies formed. Combat doctrine manuals were rewritten. Amy Torres opened the first fully integrated tactical academy, teaching students from a dozen species how to fight as coordinated teams instead of identical units. Her academy became the model for others across Alliance space. Orth returned to his homeworld, no longer an exile but a hero. He established a Kalith combat school that taught forearm coordination, helping his species unlock capabilities they had suppressed for centuries. Young Kalith warriors learned to use all their limbs in combat, equipment management, and coordinated operations. Krell, the Dronic student from the War College, became the youngest heavy assault instructor in Alliance history. He taught his species to think beyond pure firepower, to use their strength for protection and support as well as destruction. David worked directly with the military command, traveling to training facilities across the galaxy. Everywhere he went, the message was the same: stop trying to be something you're not. Be the best version of what you are. 9 months after the Grand Assembly vote, David received a priority communication from Frontier Sensors. A new threat was emerging, a species from beyond known space, fighting with coordinated swarm tactics that overwhelmed traditional defenses. He reviewed the limited footage available. Thousands of small fighters moving in perfect coordination, each one weak individually but devastating collectively. Traditional single-weapon doctrine would be crushed by such tactics. But Alliance forces no longer use traditional doctrine. David pulled up force composition data, mixed species rapid response teams, humans providing multi-target engagement, Kalith managing coordinated equipment and communications, Dronics offering mobile cover and heavy support, Silith providing fast response close combat capabilities. Different species, different abilities, working together. "This is what we've been preparing for," he said to Amy and Orth in the command center. "An enemy that can't be beaten with old methods. An enemy that requires us to think differently." "The Alliance is ready," Amy said confidently. "Every species fighting to their strengths. Every unit trained in coordination. We're not the same military we were a year ago." Orth's skin shifted to determined orange. "We learned from humans that impossible is just a word. Now we teach the galaxy the same lesson." The Frontier War would test the new doctrine thoroughly, but David wasn't worried. The Alliance had learned to embrace diversity, to value different capabilities, to work together instead of forcing conformity. Humanity's contribution to the galaxy wasn't dual-wielding. It was inspiration. The inspiration to question limits, to challenge assumptions, to try what others said was impossible. David looked at his hands one last time, the ordinary human hands that had started everything. Then he turned to the tactical display, ready to face the new threat. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Not that humans were special, but that every species was special in their own way. And when special abilities combined instead of competing, anything was possible. Across Alliance space, new graduates from integrated academies took their posts. Kalith warriors wielding 4 weapons with improving coordination. Dronic soldiers carrying shields alongside their cannons. Silith fighters using both blades as their ancestors had. And humans dual-wielding with the natural bilateral coordination that had sparked the revolution. All of them different. All of them stronger together. The alert sounded. The swarm was entering Alliance space. Forces mobilized. Mixed species teams deployed. David picked up his 2 pistols, the weapons that had become symbols of change across the galaxy. But he wasn't fighting alone. He was fighting alongside warriors from dozens of species, each bringing their unique capabilities to the battle. For the Alliance, he said. For diversity, Orth added. For the future, Amy finished. They moved out together, human and alien, different and united, ready to prove that the galaxy's strength came from embracing what made each species unique. The dual-wielding human had taught the galaxy to question impossible. Now the galaxy would show the universe what became possible when different strengths combined. The revolution David started with a simple instinctive action during a pirate raid had transformed galactic military culture. Not because humans were better, but because humans had reminded everyone that different could be strength. And that lesson would echo across the stars for generations to come.